Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gary Fowler. It is great to be here today. I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD, Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, one of the first generative AI companies, pre-transformer models that I found in 2016 with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. With that, I have an incredible guest today, Lacey Mathews, who's the CEO and co-founder of Nori Intelligence. And today, we're going to talk about how they can definitely help your kids and your school and your home life get better with the administration of neuroscience technologies. With that, hi, Lacey.
Hi, Gary. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about it. So first of all, I know we spoke earlier and you saw some moose outside of your house.
I did. I live up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. So we're a small ski town, and we have a family of moose that live in the open space across the street. And this year they have 2 babies. So periodically, just a family of moose comes walking by outside my office.
Now, I understand that the moose mothers don't really like when you get too close to their babies. Is that true?
Absolutely. They are probably more of a mama bear than a bear is. They're very, very protective, and they can be very aggressive, and they are huge. So you really don't want to mess with them.
Wow. What do you do when you see a moose out in the wild? You just stay away from it?
Yeah, you back away carefully, try not to engage, really just try not to do anything aggressive or dominant, and just give them their space. They're not going to attack unless you provoke, so just giving them their space.
Yeah, well, it's probably good where you are. There's probably aren't a lot of bears right there, right? There's probably not a lot of bear coming around to grab them.
We actually do have a good amount of bears, but we have the black bears that are smaller. They're less aggressive. Our trash cans are more at risk than our moose from a bear. So we have a good population of bears, but they are not like up north where you see grizzlies and really more aggressive bears.
Wow, interesting. So tell me, how can you share your journey that led up to the co-founding of Nuri Intelligence? How did this come about?
Absolutely. So I have been in technology for the past 20 years, really from a sort of project operation and then product design perspective. But a large chunk of that has been deeply focused on ed tech. And then I also teach at the college level, project management, some intro courses, things like that. And so my business partner, Mariana, and I were sitting down time and time again with educators, and the spark for Nuri really came from sitting down over and over and hearing incredible educators ready to break down. Attrition for educators in the United States is at its highest right now, with almost half of teachers leaving the profession before they've hit their 5th year. And we heard over and over this concern for the behavior challenges in our classroom and on our campuses is kind of the highest concern right now. And teachers need help, not after the fact in figuring out how to resolve it, but in the moment. And so Nuri really came to life because with AI, as we've kind of come out of the AI winter, we have this opportunity to get tools into the educator's hands that can provide that on-demand, in-the-moment solution and coaching. So you're not, as students are fighting in a classroom, trying to think back through, what are some of the neuroscience strategies I know? But you have someone available right now with access to all of this great, really well-honed and curated information. So Nuri allows the instructor to, in the moment, have solutions that are really, really easy to use, well-guided. And then on the backside of it, all of the analytics have tracked what you've done to really work with students. And so we have the data showing how much it improves behavior and the return of time for instruction, et cetera.
So what specifically inspired you to tackle behavioral challenges in education? Was it that conversation with your partner, Mariana? Was it on your own? Do you have children?
I do. I have 2 children. I have 2 boys. They are 5 and 9. And I will say they have been heavy participants in our early pilot. And it's been really amazing to see the response and the change just in my own household. And so coming out of ed tech, I have really enjoyed being very intentional about learning-driven tools and products. And so Mariana and I connected, as she had also been in ed tech for a long time and had been in active therapeutic practice within schools. And so we both had heard this common theme of this deep burnout and pain for educators who are in the field because of their passion, but they aren't equipped in a way to maintain what is needed emotionally to stay in the field. And so we connected, and really in thinking through, our original focus actually was in supporting specifically special education. But as we talked with our customers, as we talked with more educators, principals, administrators, the call for help was really at the general level. And the support that Nuri provides works at any level, not just with students, but with adults, really in providing a mechanism to help us self-regulate our neurosystem or our nervous systems and operate in our kind of best self, most logical mind.
What is the core behavioral crisis currently facing U.S. schools, and why is this problem escalating?
Yeah, so we saw a huge escalation in behavioral issues coming out of the pandemic, and we understood lives had been completely overthrown. But what hasn't gone back down is behavioral kind of, I would say not an outburst, but sort of we've had a spike in escalations of behavior. So where in the past, students are always, as they are growing and learning and maturing, building new neural pathways and the ability to focus deeply or focus for longer. And so there's an evolutionary process there. But what we have seen is that behaviorally, people are faster to trigger. We are all kind of operating in a high stress society right now. And what that means from the nervous system perspective is that we're operating in a place of dysregulation. And what we mean by that, really, that's kind of a big word to say. When you get so overwhelmed in your nervous system that you're not able to operate those core functions like focus, you see a lot of outbursts, people shut down. It's those moments where we're like, I look back and I'm a little bit embarrassed that I said that thing, or I walked out on the call. We become so dysregulated that we make poor choices. We're operating from no longer the logic brain. We are in fight or flight, and we're just wanting to survive and get out of this place of emergency. And so when we look at that nervous system context, we partner that with childhood evolution and behavior, and you can see how fast things just begin exploding more rapidly. We escalate quickly into bad behavior when what we need to target is the nervous system. Historically, we've given a lot of tools that are carrot and stick, and they just don't work because they're not solving for the true issue of becoming so dysregulated that we can't operate anymore.
You mentioned that K-12 educators face more daily decisions than ER doctors. Can you elaborate on this comparison and its implications?
Yeah, absolutely. So that comparison came from a deep set of research in Parenting, Love, and Logic, and a few other sources. But essentially, when we look at the number of decisions that an ER doctor makes on a shift, it's somewhere in the 600 to 800 realm. During a school day, an educator is making 1,500 plus decisions. So the amount of on-the-spot choices that they have to make creates a near decision fatigue that they just have to live in. And so you have to really find ways to keep your system operating at its best and keep your mind operating in its logic space so that you can make those decisions well. Another interesting fact about that kind of crisis is that not only are they making more decisions in a day, but they're also facing more secondary trauma than first responders, because they're dealing with students coming in with issues from home, issues, all sorts of places, but they're carrying that as the adult in the room guiding them. And so they really take on a huge burden. And when that's where you operate, you really have to hone in on your awareness of where you are neurologically so that you can maintain stability through crisis.
How exactly does neurointelligence integrate neuroscience's AI to address behavioral challenges in schools?
That's a great question. So the way that we're leveraging the AI is really, I would say, based on what we've created is a RAG pipeline layered over GPT-4, and then we've grounded it in these really deep neuroscience practices. So we have a partnership. We have a few partnerships, but our primary is experts like Dr. Lori who's one of the foremost neuroscience and education researchers. She has a deep trauma-informed lens. And so through our partnership with her, we've really been able to customize and deeply define how our RAG pipeline is layered and the way that we're able to put together the conversational LLM that allows for the coaching with really deep research, tried and true practices, so that you aren't wasting time on a strategy that's not going to help. What we need is a solution in the moment. And so we can't waste an extra breath of an educator on a practice that isn't going to move the needle. And so one of the best ways that we've been able to do that through the AI is really creating that kind of custom generated pipeline for information.
Can you describe what a practical example would be of how the solution can support an educator during a stressful or difficult classroom moment?
Absolutely. And I can give you a really great example that has worked really well with my own children also. So one of the great things about Nuri Intelligence is that it is not just reactive. With the AI, we can start becoming, for the first time ever, predictive and preventative. And so we're doing things to sort of heat map the day in the life of a teacher. And we recognize those moments where tension happens, and we can start predicting and getting ahead. We're also getting that consistent feedback through the coaching loop and feedback cycles to say, hey, that strategy worked. In the past, it took me 10 minutes to get Jimmy to refocus. This time you gave me a strategy that was 2 minutes of a focused breathing and stretching exercise. And then he sat down and was able to take his exam. And so we can get predictive, which means then we're getting even further ahead of those escalations. And that really allows us to further bring the benefits of the AI into that. And so what we start seeing are things like, hey, Mrs. Mathews, your students are coming in from lunch and they are constantly, sugared up from snacks and they've been running around, but you have 1 hour of math instruction time that you need to give them. And what can you do then to help solve for that? And so what's really neat about Nuri and the AI is they hyper-personalize the solutions. And so when students come back into class, one of the examples is that there is a 2-minute guided meditation every day where they sit down. It's just coordinated breathing. Nuri gives a very clear script. So all the teacher needs to do is read it. By nature, when I do it, I become more calm, just modulating my voice and going through the practice. But the meditation itself is hyper-personalized because it knows the students. And so for my kids, it's almost always about Sonic the Hedgehog or Minecraft. And we go through great guided meditations about we're building this thing and we're going to put the extra block here. And, oh, what is Steve doing? But the neuroscience of it is guiding our heart rate back into appropriate rhythms. And what we know about nervous systems as well is that we co-regulate. People don't learn behavior and skills through a carrot and a stick, a lecture, or a consequence. We learn it through co-regulating. So when we're born, we borrow calm from our parents until we can generate it ourselves. But it is their calm. That's why we soothe babies. That's why we rock them to sleep, because we're co-regulating. So you can regulate an entire classroom together with hyper-personalized guided exercises that don't require effort from the instructor, and everyone benefits. And then we have the practical detail showing the instructional time saved, the reduction of escalations and other issues. And we know through the system, don't wait until the class comes in from lunch and you've had to say 5 times, please sit still. As soon as they're in, just start your strategy because the system's built in for you to do it. And it's been great. My kids love the meditation visualizations. There's a lot of movement in them sometimes. And it's been an amazing change in what were previously really frustrating tasks like brush your teeth, get to bed, or get your shoes on and out the door. And now they are engaging activities that get us through a process, and my kids are focused. And then we have these great conversations in the car. So it really moves the needle in a very practical way. And my kids love asking Nuri for exercises they can do.
How have you identified your initial market, which makes schools receptive or aligned to your technology? How did you do that, and how aligned are they?
That's a great question. So my business partner, Mariana, as I was saying, was in active therapeutic support in schools for a long time and then moved into ed tech in the emotional and socio-emotional learning area. And so she has a very deep network. She's also part of the Trauma Informed Educators Network. And so really a lot of the way that we have collaboratively sort of built this is through sort of a mantra of building in public. And really getting as much voice as possible. I think through conversations you and I have had, Gary, about just hitting the pavement, talking to everyone that you can, and identifying those schools where we're already focused on kind of that trauma-informed intent, where we're not tackling the behavior, we're tackling the underlying dysregulation, schools that are aware of or struggling most with the challenge. And those places have been just, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. And that's allowed us to really get further, deeper into that voice. And it's opened some really neat things that we have kind of going on in our pilot, where we're testing almost beyond the classroom application. We've had some folks who've said, hey, I know this is for schools, but I would love to try it with my team in my corporate job, because if co-regulation is true, that will work there for me. And it's going really well. So we've really focused on sort of building partnership with schools initially, because we knew there are some schools that are just more aware of the neuroscience approach. And that's allowed us to really hone it in and then expand it. And then as we've done that, the application of the neuroscience really is not limited to any age group. So anywhere that there are humans co-regulating, meaning more than one of us, the neuroscience is applicable. And what's really cool is that with AI, we can do that hyper-personalization. So then it's not going to give a group walking into a board meeting a childlike example or exercise. It can really build in a way that feels appropriate. But you can get really amazing results and increased productivity when we start a conversation and we are all focused, co-regulated, and ready to produce.
What makes AI uniquely suited to solving the behavioral issues compared to traditional methods? So we talked about that. The one question I had, can you discuss your business model and why a SaaS subscription approach is effective for schools and districts?
Yeah. So a lot of their ability to kind of tailor it up and down is emphasized and supported in a SaaS model. Our approach is a tiered approach. And so there are, you're able to work within different needs, budgets, and then escalate it. And we have these really great partnerships, as I mentioned, with researchers and other trauma-informed groups that can then also, we, as the tiers expand, we can provide on ground and in classroom support as well, to deepen the knowledge and training, et cetera. And so the SaaS model allows us to stay flexible with schools. It allows us to kind of meet them where they are, but also they're on a school year schedule, so they don't necessarily need access year round. It allows them to kind of figure out their subscription models and gives us some flexibility there. And it allows us to integrate into their systems without having to kind of dominate what's working and what does exist. We are working through integrations with student information systems, which are those platforms that house all of the grading, all of the rubrics, curriculum, et cetera, and integrating into that so things are seamless for teachers. And so being on that model really allows us to kind of flexibly integrate where we want as well.
So, what have you learned from your initial foray in the meeting with customers and/or pilot projects, and any surprising insights or impactful stories?
Yeah, so we have had some amazing insights. First of all, say everyone that whenever we've sat down and really kind of talked through the benefits of it, or been able to kind of do a demo of, here is an ask and here is a structured response and the coaching and learning you can do through that. The response has been powerful. Teachers have really spoken in some great ways about, this is the first tool that actually helps me. We had somebody that just said, this is the first time I have a tool that helps me breathe. I have air for the first time in my classroom. And that's, to us, has been very powerful, because with co-regulation, we know that the most impactful thing we can do is give the right oxygen mask to a leader in a classroom. And so we've gotten really great feedback from teachers about this. This has actually genuinely given me back my calm. I am able to breathe again. Teachers have reported, just generally across the board, very good response to not just individual practices, but group exercises, leading to more calm in the classroom within between 5 to 7 interactions. So as you interact with it more, obviously you're building neural pathways that are more resilient. And so as we practice going from a state of dysregulation into regulation, we get much better at it. And then we can improve our mentality and our kind of longevity of our life through that as well. And so we've seen really great things about just more confidence in handling dysregulation, more awareness of it, so that escalations are mitigated in advance. And they're not just using it in crisis. Once you know that you can get ahead of and mitigate crisis. One really, really interesting conversation that we had with a customer was actually more the customer, in chatting through some great ways that Nuri gives strategies that help to bring you back into regulation. She was very, very excited about that application. Her husband is the chaplain of a prison system. And when we think about high stress, high escalation, high risk environments, when we can apply this deep neuroscience training, we have an opportunity to de-escalate in a life-changing way. So it was a surprise bit of feedback, but makes absolute sense when we think about the biology of our nervous system. It applies keeping that regulated in any context. So we're really excited to continue pursuing like all of the different applications, and trying to, first and foremost, drive a really big, impactful transformation in K-12 schools, keeping educators and students operating as their best self on a regular and consistent basis.
So what are the most significant challenges you faced in building and scaling Nuri, and how have you overcome them?
I think one of the challenges that we had is actually leveraging AI in an industry that is a little bit more hesitant to adopt cutting edge technology. And when we think about AI in the school system, the first application or widespread application of AI was generative AI. And the fear was plagiarism, or I'm not writing my paper anymore. And now what do I do to get my students to do the work and learn, actually learn the topic, if they could go?
Well, that's going to be really difficult these days, Lacey.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like the old days where, you would go down and you couldn't really, do original content. And maybe this thing is that original if you did semantic analysis of your emails and files and former papers. You can actually do that. The technology is incredible, actually.
Yeah. So there's a hurdle to overcome from a trust perspective, particularly in education, because of the original way that it was kind of applied left a nervous taste in folks' mouths. But what I think has been helpful for us, ways that we are able to overcome it, in large part are in somewhat helping build awareness around, what do we mean when we talk about training AI? What limits can you put on it so that you have safety? How could you apply things like HIPAA and FERPA compliance? Because we're not just talking about cheating on a paper, we're talking about behavioral information, and we want to keep that compliant and safe and appropriate. And so really helping to unpack and educate folks about what AI is and what it is not, how you can work with it in beneficial ways. And so what we've built into the system and into our RAG model was AI training. And so as the user is working with Nuri, they're also being dripped information about how to give a good prompt and what is the AI doing and How did we train this? So that helps reinforce for them that they are safe, this is secure, and also becoming more aware and educated users of AI in general. And so we've built in a knowledge base, and that leverages then AI through coaching. So you can ask Nuri for neuroscience tips, but you can also ask Nuri to teach you about AI, and it's going to help you understand and trust that system. So a lot of transparency has been really important. And then I think we've also seen a shift educationally in the fear of what we thought AI might do if my student never wrote their paper. Because, and I think with your background in psychology, Gary, you would understand this, of just the objective for learning was not how to write a paper. It was the content, the topic, right? And so instead of fighting the generative AI, we're shifting the way we think about it to saying like, well, how can a student prompt their AI such that we now see like, oh, you did understand and pick up the context. How can we build the back end prompting as a way to evaluate the student's knowledge because of how they interact? There's some really cool applications coming together about assessments through AI and creating kind of exercises and activities that the student would engage in. And in our case, perhaps it's a game that feels a little intentionally frictional, because we want to know what happens when you stress out. How do you respond? You know, and so while you're going through this exercise, the AI is giving an assessment of, okay, I can see that they have this skill set, they could work on this. And so we're able to also help build more trust and safety around the concept of AI when we start kind of educationally thinking about what are the objectives we're going for and how can the AI support that. So
we're coming up to the top of this show. Lacey, closing thoughts and how do people get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So, well, thank you so much first for having me. It's always a pleasure to connect. We are moving through our first or our second round of closed pilot right now, and we will be live in school districts in the fall. We are actively excited for anyone who'd love to come pilot with us. You can find us at nuriintelligence.ai. That's Nuri intelligence.ai. Or you can reach out to us at askaway@nuriintelligence.ai. We are so excited. We are seeing active and lasting transformation. And we are very, very excited to see where behavioral intelligence can continue growing and scaling with all of the application of AI. And we are really so excited about what we've seen, and it's only the beginning. So we're very excited to have been here, and thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. And thanks to all my audience for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. My name is Gary Fowler. This is Top Global Startups. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. I'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Thanks, Lacey. Appreciate your time, and thanks, everybody.
Thanks.